Good morning. A little different than usual. We're up to Daf Nun Amid Beis. Nun Amid Beis, very interesting sugya of minig and. And the last Gemara we had was a dialogue between Baishon and Rabbi Yochanan. Baishon's fathers were noyig not to go to the shuk on Erev Shabbos of the Chumrah. They were machmir themselves. And the sons, they said, our fathers had money. That's why they were machmir themselves. We don't have money. What should we do? And Rabbi Yochanan, he went ahead and said that Shema B'nei Musa Avicha Val Titush Tar Simecha, do not leave, do not be going ahead and change from the minig of your fathers. So I thought it'd be nice to go through a few Rishayim and Achroinim on that Inyan. So Bez Hashem, let's put it on the screen and see what we got. We'll go through this and then Bez Hashem will say share. Kas Rabbeinu David will come on Daf Nun Aleph. B'Shem Ramban. Rabbeinu David was a Rishon. Says the name of the Ramban. When the other Rishonim didn't say who Mishum didn't nidrei mitzvah. When a person goes ahead and wants to do a mitzvah or protect the mitzvah, they make a neder. If someone is noyig isser in davar hamutta, it was mutter to do business in this case of Bnei Baishan, but they were noyig by isser not to do business. They ligdor es atzmaim isser Torah to come to make a gather. You shouldn't come to the isser of Torah of working after said mincha l'mayla. They were noyig not to work, but so therefore they won't work even before. And they come in front of us to matir, says the Ramban, you wouldn't give them a heter. Afim yesh pesach v'charata. Usually the chachomim, if you have an excuse or a reason, you mischaret, you go ahead and you change your mind. But even in this, it's such a strong neder, they would not be able to go ahead and alleviate you from the neder. Since the person was mekabel upon himself, be noig issa, harizeh kinidrei mitzvah. Shari Kiddush Atzmai, but Mutaloi, who's Mekadosh himself, like a Nazir, he's Mekadosh himself, something that's Mutta, the Naz is Mutta to wine, the Naz is Magdish himself, he also is Mutta to Malachi, he's Magdish himself. Last is Gedel Atzmo, to make a Gedel for himself. Then Koyach Bezin, Lahataloi Bezin does not have the Koyach to matter that. The Ein Matirin Aflabonov, and even the children, such a strong, powerful neder that even the children would not get a heter. Kishar Takanas Sha'asu Chachamim, like other Takanas that the Chachamim made. The universal, they're not just for that generation, they go on. So to the neder, the minig of mishpacha, that's beged, the neder mitzvah, right? And therefore you can't eat matter. That's the Ramban. The Zeu Tamachiev continues the Rabbeinu David, linig minig hamakim. What's the reason, the inyan of being noig the minig hamakim that you come to? Hamuska b'perkenu that we mentioned in our perek. They should kiblu aleim, that place was makabel upon themselves. Those are the koyach to mat on themselves, their children, anyone who depends upon them. Despite the fact you're in a different place, not the place of the minig where you were machmir yourself. You have to keep the minig the place you left. Human friend is chayiv which is a shaila. We'll see. The place that you left, the Kabbalah of the people who in that place, the Mechayev people, all the people who are there. Finally, come on, the Farish will see. The Rush seems to disagree. The Rush is going to disagree with the Ramban. What does the Rush say? Get into the mitzvah. Kosav Shiva Adam Shenoyik Sayog La'atzmai Matirin Layal Yidecharata Kishar Neder Shev Shala'atir. In other words, if a person makes a sayog, as opposed to the Ramban who said it has no haTorah, even al yidei charata, the Rosh would disagree and says that this minig it's possible to go ahead and be mischared and go ahead and remove the I would have Bnei Baishan. So what was the Indian of Bnei Baishan? Why couldn't they take off the neder of the father and then go ahead to do business on Friday? Well, Bnei Baishan lo yatiru lehem kidei shelo yavo l'zalzel b'minig sheno gavaisam. They shouldn't come to go cheapen the minig that the father was naik. There's an Indian that seems to be that despite the fact that they could take it off, there's an Indian of zilzal of voice, mizalzal the minhagim of the father. Because of a prichadash, sha'at kan because of Ramban estavarov she'im matir lehem. When does the Ramban say there's no Indian of being matir taking it off? Ela b'dava shehu machmas sayog, something that's a protective around the din Torah. She'ozi shloima shekiblu al atzman be'issa she'as v'Torah. Makabel themselves to protect something that the Torah asked. But a minig that comes as a result of being poirish or chasidus, that's not Torah based, right? that's not Torah based. In that case, what you could have a Torah. So therefore, I guess the minig of not working on Friday in the beginning of the day it's not a basis in the Torah. It's a sayog. That you would go ahead. What sayog from even working afterwards, which seems to be a simon bracha, but it doesn't say there's no issa malacha. It's a minig. The minig is not the work. Therefore, you would have Torah. Va'ayinoy b'tshuvas chavis yoyer shekosav ke'ein zeh, similar to the Rosh. Shedin sen she'amir gemara kan kvar kiblu avosei alechem. Rabbi Yochanan says 3 lines in the bottom. Kvar kiblu avosechem alechem lashon. Your fathers makabel themselves. Ain't a din shechayiv ha'odam l'kayim es minig sayog aviv mitzachu aviv. It's not a din that it's a minig and sayog because of the father. Alhu adin shechayiv l'odam linig b'minig b'mkomo if they shechumrihi kabbalas kehila kedusha kavuash shemachayim esay linig came la'olam b'makom zeh. He's asking a question. How could you tell me that the Indian of being makabel of father that's the same reason as the minig ha'mokim? It doesn't say that in the Gemara. It says in the Gemara for kiblu avosechem. So the Tshuvas Chavis Yoyer says that's not, the diak is not avosechem limited to that, but it's extended even beyond that. If this Kila Kadosha was Kaveya, this place, that's like your father was Kaveya. Like there's a familia in the family, there's a minig. So too in the Mokim there is a minig. It's the minig on Mokim. They have the strength, Shal Takanas Chachamim, and Mechayeves Limikim. The Lashon HaGemara Kibul Avosechem Lav Dafka. The Lashon of the Gemara that the fathers of Makabel is Lav Dafka, like Biglal Shahaya Avoisam. But it's only because in this case they happen to be the fathers. The Haposik Shehevi Shmamini Busa Avicha Asmachta Ma'almahu. It's a din Asmachta Bayin Shem Barichis in the Chuvas Chavis Yoyer. So Chavis Yoyer wants to say, based upon this Gemara, this minig avosechem really is minig hamokim. It's the source for minig hamokim. Just like a father, a familiar chiyuv, so there's familiar chiyuv for what? For minig hamokim. However, the Chuvas Chasim Soifa says, Shapasik says shel shma b'ni hu chiyuv midavrei kabbalah. It's a din midavrei kabbalah v'ein midrabanan. There's certain chiyuvim that are stronger than the rabbanan. Of course, we have midaraisa and we have midrabanan, and then there's divrei kabbalah. So, for example, the chiyuv to read the Megillah is the Kabbalah. It's from the Nevi'im. So, who adin the pasuk of Mishlei from Shlomo HaMelech Shema b'ni Busa Avicha, right? The Altita Shetaris Mecha. It's the Kabbalah. And so, therefore, he says that it's stronger than adin the Rabbanan Ayin Shah. Okay, so we have a few interesting sources for this din that we just saw that the Bnei Baishan were noig. That the Bnei Baishan were noig this minig, whether it's the Nidrei Mitzvah like the Ramban and it's not Shayach Harata. Or like the Rosh, that it is Shayach Harata because it's Sayog. It is possible. Chavis Yoyer wants to say that that's the source for the sugya that we're about to enter, the sugya of minig. And B'ez Hashem, we'll see. You have that safer. If we'll see B'ez Hashem after we do it, I'll bring down some halachas according to the Mishnah Torah. Says the Gemara, we're up to Nun Amid Beis, the bottom line, 2 lines in the bottom. Bnei Chuzoi, the people of Mechuzah, Noigi, the Mafish Chala me Aruza. They're ready to go ahead and separate Chala from rice. Now we know the din of Chiyuv of Chala is only in the din of the 5 grains, right? The Chita, Soira, Kisumin, Shifun, Shibal Shuel, wheat, barley, oat, rice. No, not rice. Wheat, barley, oat, and rye and spelt. Those are the din of Dagon. Mashenkin rice, there's no din of Hafrasha Schala for it to give to the Kohen. So in this place, they were noik in Mafresh Schala. Also, Rabbi Yosef, they told Rabbi Yosef, told Rabbi Yosef, Amalahu, but Rabbi Yosef told him, Nichle Zar, right, Bapayir, go feed this Chala to a Zar, a non-Kohen in front of you. In other words, you want to be mevatel this minig right now. We want to stop it right now. How do you stop a minig? I'm showing you it's not Chala, because Chala is Truma. Chala is Truma, and you cannot go ahead and treat this like Truma. It is, in fact, it's mutter l'zar. Yes, the Abaya to Rabbi Yosef, how in the world could you go ahead and tell them something that they're noig isser, an isser of Chala, that's asa to zar? How can you go mevatel in front of them? Aidvarim hamutarim, v'acherim nagu be'isser, things that are mutter, and others go ahead and they're noig be'heter, right? I asa rashoyel hatiran, But b'fneim, you're not able to go ahead and mat in front of them. So how are you able to go ahead? They're noig something that's mutter, noig b'heta. How are you able to go ahead and mat the challah of rice? So Amar said Rabbi Yosef to Abaya, "V'lav mi yitmar Allah." Did we not learn on that statement that something that is asa, that's mutter, the noig issa? Did we not learn on that? Amar of Chisda b'kutoi. We're speaking about the Kutim. Again, the Kutim were a nation that Sancheris set up in the Shomron. There was a shiloh about their status, whether they were Geri Emes or Geri Arroyos. They were Gerim as a result of real Gerim or a result of having a problem with lions. And ultimately, they were proved to be Geri Arroyos. Arroyos was an Aleph. And therefore, it was said dafta by the Kutim, but not by Bnei Chuzoi, who are not Kutim. So therefore, I can tell them it's mutter constant. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef. Now, Abaye retorts to Rabbi Yosef, "Kutoi my timer." What's the reason that you don't tell the Kutim? Milsa, because they're going to go ahead and be Mekel. In other words, they finally had a Chumrah. They were Machmer. Now you're going to tell them Mekel. They're going to extend that Mekel to something else. So we avoid it. So Hanach Inshi, this Bnei Mechuza, Nami Sarchi Milsa. Will also come out what? Will come out a Kula. They may go ahead and do away with Duggan. They may do away with challah dog, and they'll say, "Look, I don't have to take challah off rice. I won't come to take challah for dog either." So, why is eating Rabbi Yosef? Why the fact that you matter him? Why aren't you worried that something bad's going to happen? El Amr Avashi Chazina. Halach l'mais Chazina. Iruba oiriz achli. Right? If most of the people there eat rice cakes, rice bread, loy nichli zorba pyre. Then don't go ahead and let them take off challah. Nothing. Because if you stop taking challah, they're going to forget Teres challah. The Reuben Dagon achli, but most of them eat Dagon, the 5 grains. Then go ahead, nichlis abapayu, go ahead, and you can in front of them to destroy the toys that in fact you take challah off rice. What are you worried about? If they're going to go ahead and take challah off rice, they can't take challah off from rice off Dagon, or vice versa, Dagon on challah, which you can do. So therefore, we worry about that. Understanding of this. Let's see a little Taisus over here. It says Taisus. Rebbe Beit Shan Perek Chulin. Right in Chulin, Rebbe mated Beit Shan. I forgot what it was. Truma. I forgot what it was. He mated it. The Tiras Ben Nisan Ben Migilas Starim. The High Dvorim Mutarim Bacherim Nogam and Issa. Hainu sheyoidim sheim mutarim. They know it's mutar. They rotzim lahachmer la'atzman. And then if they know it and they know the halacha, but they want to be machmer, then you don't have a reason to mata. V'chein mashma lishna devarim hamutarim. So to it's mashma the lishna devarim hamutarim. So Taisus is qualifying this din that we say that something that the noig ba iser. You can't go ahead and say it's mutter. It's only when they know the halacha, but they're noig a chumrah. So since they're noig a chumrah, you don't want to go ahead and things that are mutter, you can't go ahead and tell them that that's. It's a mistake. They think it's asa. If a people amaratzis, the reason that they're doing it is because they don't know the halacha. And they're doing it, then certainly you can go ahead and be machmir. So you can go ahead and be machmir, right? Okay, so that would be a good mamak. Get back in the Gemara. Gufa. Now we're going to go ahead and analyze the last statement itself. Gufa. You asked this a kasha on Abaye asked this a kasha on Yosef. Now let's analyze it for itself. You don't have permission to go ahead and matter it. Rav Chisda said it's speaking about Dafka the Kutim. And other people not. I'll show you other scenarios where, in fact, there were noig isser in a certain place. People came along and they were noig heter, and when they were informed that, in fact, they were doing the wrong thing, they didn't tell them it's mutter, but they, in fact, they went along with the minig and they left it. Two brothers are able to go ahead and bathe together. They can go to mikveh together, However, the aim reichten shnei achim bekabel. In Kabul, they were knowing the two brothers would go to the mikveh together. They would go to the Beit House together. Umaisa beYehuda beHillel, banav shel Rabbi Gamliel, sherachzu shneim ke'echad bekabel. They went to the mikveh together. V'loza aleim kol Medina, and it was a big uproar. Can you imagine two boys going to the mikveh together? Amru, we never saw this. We never saw this in our days. The Nishmat Hillel, instead of telling them it's mutter, the Nishmat Hillel, the Yatzel Beis Apitzayin, but what's the line alehem mutarim atem, right? So why didn't he tell them it's mutter? They're them apparently making a mistake, like we said, they're making a mistake in such a place. Why didn't he go ahead and tell them it's mutter? Yoitzin b'Shabbos. You can go out with these kurdisim that seem like house slippers, house shoes on Shabbos, despite the fact they're very loose and you may come off and carry them. When yoitzim kurdisim b'Shabbos b'bari. But the halacha is you're able to go out with them. However, in the town of Biri, they did not go out with them. Ma'aseh b'Yehuda v'Hillel banim, again, same people. Banim shel Rabbi Gamliel sheyatzu the keystone. They went out with these house slippers b'Shabbos b'Biri, in the town of Biri. And what happened? The same thing. Allah alayhim haMedina. But these guys caused it up. These guys were causing upwards all the time. We never saw such a thing. The shamtu, and they took him off and and they gave it right away to the avodim, then that people should not be choshed them. They didn't want to say to go ahead and tell them it's mutter. Mutter matem. You're able to sit on the bench of merchants of Goyim on Shabbos, right? Right? In the town of Akko, they did. What's the chashad over here? It looks like you're doing business. They had, they're placed in front of the chef. They would have places they would sit, because you're not able to sit there because of the chashad that maybe you're going to. No, we're not worried about that. In Akko, they were worried about that. Ma'aseh Reb Shimon Gamliel, we have new people now. Ma'aseh Reb Shimon Gamliel, sheyoshev al safsalig nachrim b'Shabbos. He sat on the safsalim nachrim on Shabbos ba'Akko. V'lozu kol of Medina. They went and sat on the ground. He sat on the ground. So l'chayra, you have a big kasha. You're telling me that what? That there's only by what? By kutim. It's a kasha. Rav Chisda, you said this thing of informing people that you're not supposed to inform them. We see over here by these all falestlacha people, the town of Akka, Kabul, or Biri, they will all find places, and nonetheless they would know you not to tell them. So why do you say it's limited to kutim? After Gemara, b'nei Medina Sayam Nami Kivilei Shchichi Rabbanan Gabayu. B'nei Medina Sayam, since it's not shayach, it's not found commonly Rabbanan among them. So they're Amaratzim Kukutim Dami. They have a dinner kutim. So therefore, we'd worry if we would tell them that it's mutter. It may lead to other heterim, other kulas, as we said at the top of the daf. I mean, some sarchim also. So over here, Hodin, the same thing that we'd worry about that. Now, what are the concerns? Going back over the three previous cases, what are the concerns? Bishleim Safsali Nachrim, very good. The Safsali Nachrim Mishum the Nichsik Mekach on Shabbos, so that would be a concern. Bikur the Kisa Nami, what do you worry about the shoes, the house shoes? Tell me Mishtal thing. Maybe it'll go ahead and slip off. Vasi Lasanu, the very famous what for Hamas bin Bishul Rabbim. You always worried about that. Arba Mishum Ella Reichsen, they're worried. What are they worried about in the mikvah? Like two brothers worried. What are you worried about in the mikvah? My time alike, Tanya. In my kol Adam Reichitz, you can go to the mikvah with anybody. Chutz me aviv v'chama, the exception of your father and your father and your father-in-law, ubal imoy, and the husband of your mother. In these cases, you may look, and it leads to hehurim. You look at the erva and say, this is the place where it came from. Ubal echaisai, or your sister's husband, your brother-in-law. Rabbi Yehuda mateh ba'aviv, and they covered aviv. If your father needs help, you're able to go to the mikveh to help your father. Who had done lebal imoy, also the stepfather, the wife of the husband of your mother. The asi inu came along the people in Kabul. The gaza b'shnei achim mishum balachaisei, and they were gaza. You can't go because of balachaisei, a brother-in-law. So they were gaza on brothers. They were gaza on brothers. That's the reason why in Kabul they didn't go together. So that was the reason. Again, the din of Hirhurim. Tana Tamula Yichatzim Rabbi. The side halacha of this Indian of Layirchatz and Rabbi, a Talmud should not go to the Beit House with his Rebbe. The Rabbi Tzarech Loy Mutter, and if the Rebbe needs him, then he'll be committed. The same thing as a father. In other words, a person's being Isaac and helping, then he won't be stopping at Herurim. If he is Tamazai, then you worry about Herurim. Kiyasa Rabbi Barachana, when Barachana came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Ochol, he ate the Isra. He ate the Isra. Rashi brings that one of the stomachs of a cow, the four stomachs to a cow, one of them is called the keva. That's in fact what we give to the kohen. That's one of the matnas kahuna, Zeroya lechayim keva. It's not referred to in the Talmud as the matanos. And it was significant because in the keva was rennet. And rennet, the enzyme rennet was curdled cheese. They used to make cheese. So the kohen basically had a monopoly on cheese. So therefore there was a piece of fat on the bow of the keva that was they in Eretz Yisrael is mutter. Oil legabe Ravira Saba the Rabbi Huna they came, and in Bavel they were noig iser. So in Eretz Yisrael was mutter. So Rabbi Rav Chan who came from Eretz Yisrael was eating it, and came along these people Rav Abi Saba and Rabbi Rav Huna keeping the chazinu. Rabbi Rav Chan saw them. Kaschiminayu. He went ahead and he covered it up. He covered up the fat. Asu v'amulei le avua. They came and told the father, Amalahu or Abaya, Amalahu. He said, Shadvinchu kukutoi. He, Rabbi Rachana, equated you like kutim. In other words, instead of telling you that in fact it's mutter to eat, which is what he should have done, right? He treated it like a kutoi that b'makam shenoig by Issa ein mishay and laima mutarim. So therefore he didn't say anything to you. Rabbi Rav Chan, Fred the Gemara, a nice question, really question on the whole sugya. Rabbi Rav Chan, less like had it nan nice and love chumei amakam sheyatz misham v'chumei amakam sheholach l'sham. How in the world could Rabbi Rav Chan eat this cheese, this fat in Eretz Yisrael, this chaylev excuse me, how from him in Eretz Yisrael that held its mutter, how could he go to Bavel and eat it? The chumrah of makam sheyatz misham. And Makam Bolishon, the place that you left and the place that you're coming to. So if in Bavel they didn't eat this fat, the Chayri shouldn't have eaten the fat. So Rabbi Hani Mili, Rabbi gives a teretz, mi Bavel to Bavel. From one place in Bavel to another place in Bavel, you have to be noyig the chumim of one place to another place. From Eretz Yisrael, you have to be noyig in Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, right? Then you have to be noyig. Inami mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael, you have to be noyig. However, Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, if you come from Eretz Yisrael as Rabbi Barachana did to Bavel, then loy. You do not have to be noyig the minig of the Makam of Bavel. Why? Because kimin danan kafina lahu, since we are subservient, since we are subservient to Eretz Yisrael, right? Rashi brings because Bnei Eretz Yisrael had smicha. It's very, very important. Like smicha. What's the whole meaning of smicha? Moshe Rabbeinu was Samech Yadav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to be Samech Yadav on Yeshua. That's what smicha. And from generations, smicha was lashon of being Samech Yadav, giving the power of Chayrah to future Rabbanim smicha. It ended in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, they got smicha. In Bavel, they did not. The people in Bavel did not get smicha. Thus, if you ever look at the Amoraim from Eretz Yisrael, they're called the Rebbe, right? Rebbe Asi. They're called they're called Rebbe. Masha Enkein by the Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael only called Rav, right? Rav Chisda, Rav Papa. They're only called Rav. Why? Because they didn't have smicha. So since in Eretz Yisrael they were more powerful, so to say, when the Messiah went after them. So in Bavel they were subservient. Therefore, from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, they didn't have to keep the chumrah, and thus Rabbi Rav Chana didn't have to keep the chumrah of not eating daitra. Now, Rav Ashi Amman, this is the teretz that we do need. This is halacha. Afilu teimim Eretz Yisrael leBavel hani mili heichad de'ein daitra lachser. When the ein echanami, there's no difference wherever you come from. You have to keep the minig, the place you left and the place you come to. That's provided ein daitra lachser. If your das is not to be chayzer, then you have to keep the chumrah of the place you go to. However, the Rabbi Rav Chana daitra lachser habe. Rabbi Rav Chana, his das was to go ahead and return to Eretz Yisrael. Since his das was returned to Eretz Yisrael, he didn't have to keep the minig of not eating this particular fat. He didn't have to keep that minig. So I have a whole sheet on this, but I think I'm just going to give you a few halachas. The chayiv minig b'daita l'shtakel machem chadash. Ein daita lachsa. Kol chayiv minig k'choyim ha'machem sheyatz misham. Where do you have to keep the minig of the machem that you leave? Is b'daita lachsa. That's if you want to come back. L'mkomo. Since you're going to come back, it does not go ahead and it does not back and take off the chiyuv. So therefore, if you keep 2 days of golus in Chutz La'aretz, you go to Eretz Yisrael temporarily. In Eretz Yisrael you keep 1 day. You'd still have to keep 2 days. Why? Because daitoi lachsa, because your das is to go back. But let's say your das is to stay in Eretz Yisrael. You don't have to be machmer to keep 2 days. You're able to keep the kula of the place you're living now in Eretz Yisrael. So I'm just going ahead using that. That's the classic minig, and therefore I'm using that as an example of application. Nearly the same. That was the halacha of the place you left from. So this is the same thing, the place you go to. Let's say you came to a place that doesn't have a minig kavua, like let's say you go to a place that does not have a particular minig. It doesn't have a place that has a particular minig. So therefore, it doesn't have a place of a particular minig. Therefore, you would have to keep the chumrah of the place that you came from, even if your das is not to go back, because you don't have a minig that to be noyig now to be pocket to take off the minig that you came from. What about the din of not keeping the minig? Let's say we just had a case over here. Rabbi Chana, he ate this chaylev. Why? Because his das was to go back there to Yisrael. Now, you go from one city to another. Let's say the noig that. So let's say he's in this case fat. He eats this fat, and he's come to a place where they don't eat the fat. He can go ahead and noig this minig in a place, right? Which is to eat the fat. Bitsina b'toich beisai. To go ahead and eat this in a place. In other words, he's going back. It's mutter. But to go out, the rabbin, to eat it because of machlokes, then you can't do it. Thus, Rabbi Chana, when he saw the chacham approaching, he covered it up. He didn't want to get into a dialogue. He knew there was a minig over here to go ahead and answer it, and we should keep that minig. That's important hakdama. There's no reason not to keep that minig. And because, again, they knew that, again, based upon Tosfos, they didn't make a mistake. And that's why I said, since he treated like kutayim. He treated like kutayim. He treated like a kutim that you don't tell them the halacha. So over here also, clearly the minig, they knew that it was a minig not to eat it. It was a minig not to eat it over here, but therefore he did not tell them the halacha. Hadin ba the malach, what about work? The halachas we just mentioned about not returning to a place, or all things that it's possible to go ahead and do b'tzina. What about working? Right? You come from a place that works. You go to a place that doesn't work. Right? Things that you can't keep clandestinely quiet. For example, you should not do that in the city, but what you should do, you should go out to the fields. Now, a minig anshe mokam lahokol, if the minig is to be makel, for us kim in hagay b'tzina, and umatzu anshe mokam shu boy achshav, so lahafsik min hagay shli akiru boy the'amachlokas. If they notice you doing something that is against them, you have to be master kos machlokas. Avul matzu tamul chacham ain't sarf lifts like the tamul chacham is going to know why. Tamul chacham yoidish is at totally b'minig then kamachlokas. Mekamakam chafila the yasim min hagay afilu then tamul chacham. You should be careful. Okay, this is a little basis, a little something on the Gemara that we're about to see, and this teretz again. So one line in the Gemara. That daito lachsa, not daito lachsa. And again, the application in halacha is very, very relevant. Let's see the Gemara continues. So Rabbi Rochana, what did he do? He went ahead and he ate the atra. He ate this particular fat. So now, 4 words from the bottom. Rabbi Rochana, daito lachsahu. Amalei Rabbi Rochana lebnei. He said to his son, Bnei, loy toichal, you can't eat this fat. Loy befanai, not in front of me. Uveloy shloi befanai, not in front of me. Why? Ani shari'iti es Rabbi Yochanan. I who saw Rabbi Yochanan. She'achal, that he ate it. Kedayu Rabbi Yochanan lismachalo. I can be Kedayu Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was the big big head honcho in Eretz Yisrael. He was the biggest Amori, the biggest Paisik Adar, the greatest person of his generation in Eretz Yisrael. He ate it. I, who saw him, ate it. I can eat it in front of him and not in front of him. I can eat it. Lismach lo b'fanov, v'shlei b'fanov. Ata lo re'isai. So you did not see Rabbi Yochanan. Like toichal, you can't eat it. Ben b'fanai, ben shlei b'fanai. So perish. You can't eat this at all. Period. Because you didn't see the originator of the minute. You didn't see Rabbi Yochanan. I did, but even though you see me, you can't. However, now the Gemara is going to bring a case that b'fanai you could. Upligi the day adi day. Now this is a statement. We're not going to answer this. This is a statement of Rabbi Rachana arguing on himself. Because Rabbi Rachana is saying over here, afilu b'fanai you cannot. We're going to see a case afilu b'fanai you could. Well, let's just speak out a little bit. We know this halacha of Shemitah. In the Shemitah year, you're able to eat the fruit and keep it in your house up until the Zman HaBir. What's the Zman HaBir? When it's no longer available for the animals in the field. Once it's no longer available for the animals in the field, then you have to get rid of it. It's called the Chiyav Levayir. So let's say the Gemara, there's something called Svichim. Svichim are aftergrowths, meaning you didn't plant them, but they're there. You planted seeds they remain there, or something that regenerates. There's stuff that it's called Svichim. Now, Svichim generally are rasa, and we're going to have machloikis by Svichei Kruv. We're going to have machloikis by what? By cabbage. You have a cabbage that grows in the Shemitah year. Can you go ahead? Is there a chiyuv to mevarit to get rid of it from your house or not? We're going to have machlekes, and we're going to get into the minig of a place that it was used up. The animals used it to a place the animals. Let's see the Gemara. Upligi the day adi day. Rabbi Chana, Sochli Rabbi Yochanan ben Elazar. Rabbi Yochanan ben Elazar whispered to me. Lastly, Achar Shimon ben Rabbi Yossi ben Lakunya Lagino. One time I entered after Shimon, the son of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Lakunya, to a garden on the base. V'natal Svichei Kruv. In the Shemitah year, he went ahead. He took the aftergrowth of kruv, of cabbage, and he ate it. Not only did he eat it, v'nasan li, he gave it to me. V'amar li b'ni. There's your problem right there. So Rabbi Khan is reporting this. In front of me, eat it. You could eat it. I saw Rav Shimon ben Yochai who did eat the Svichei Kruv, right? Kedai Rav Shimon ben Yochai lismachalav. Just like was Kedai Rabbi Yochanan to be samachlav linyan the diatra to the fat in Eretz Yisrael, so too Kedai Rav Shimon linyan Svichei Kruv to go ahead and be samachlav. B'fanav ushalei b'fanav. I can eat it. Ata b'fanai achal. Here's your stira. Shaloi b'fanai loy taichal. In front of him, you can't eat. Okay, so we see that Rabbi Rachana argues on himself. By fat, he did not let his son eat afilu b'fanav. However, over here, by the kruv of sviach b'fanav, he did allow it. Again, it's no kasha. It's a kasha on him, but the Gemara doesn't give it teretz. My Rav Shimon, who is this Rav Shimon who permitted the kruv, permitted the svichei kruv? The time Rav Shimon Omer, kol ha-svichim asurim. All svichim are asa to go ahead and keep in your house. Chutz mi svichei kruv, with the exception of svichei kruv, that you could keep. She'en ki yoytze ben b'yerek hasada. There's nothing similar to the yerek hasada. The chacham moyim kol ha-svichim asurim. They're all asa, even svichei kruv. Right? Shavai oli b'der b'yakiva. Rashi points out svichei kruv is very interesting. He brings one shot that is similar to trees. He asks on the kasha. He doesn't like that shot because there's a din of shemitah by trees as well. He says that kruv it's always there. The reason why you don't have to get mevar from your house is because it's always available in the field. Again, the chiyuv of the mevar is totally on the chiyuv of its availability in the field to the animals. This seems to always be available. Mamela, since it's always available, there's no chiyuv to go ahead and remove it. So now we have machloikas and Rabbi Akiva between the chachamim who say you can't eat svichei kruv, and Rabbi Shimon who says you could eat svichei kruv, meaning in your house you don't have to remove it. What's this machloikas? They borrow Rabbi Akiva, the Tanya. What does the pasuk say in the Torah? Hein loy nizra. It's the Shemitah year. You don't have to worry. Hein loy nizra. You didn't plant. Loy nesaf. You didn't gather. 1 second. And you shouldn't say, what are we going to do if we don't plant and we don't gather at tefur? Of course, if you didn't plant, you're not going to gather. It must be that what is something you can gather even though you didn't plant it. If you didn't plant something, where are you going to go ahead and gather it from? From here we see sfichin, which could be gathered, despite the fact like this, they weren't planted, they're asa. Now, we have machloikis regarding sfichin, kruv, like Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon. It might come in for me. Rabbanan who hold that svichei kruv or asa, Sava Gazrinan Sviche Kruv Atashar Svichim. The Alma. The Rabbanan Amoida, the Sviche Kruv are different. The Rabbanan Amoida that really the din of Chayla Beer and Mavar does not apply to them. However, if we allow you to go ahead and not go ahead and throw out your Sviche Kruv, you may not go ahead and throw out the things that you should throw out. Rabbi Shimon Sava, Loigas mean Sviche Kruv at the Sviche de Alma. We not goiza Sviche Kruv at the Sviche Alma, and therefore it's different, and therefore you can keep it in your house, and therefore Rabbi Shimon, we had gotten to the dialogue of Rabbi Rachana, why Rabbi Shimon? If I saw Rabbi Shimon, I could eat befun of. You who saw me can eat befun of. So we have machlokes again in Rabbi Rachana between fat, which he did not allow to eat ever, and kruv, which he did allow to Sviche Kruv, which he did allow to eat befun of. Ha'holech min makom again. So now let's go back to the Mishnah. Mishnah was a little shtek. Let's go back to the Mishnah on Nun Amid Aleph. Nun Amid Aleph. What does the Mishnah say? It speaks first. It brings in the case of working after Chatz, working before on Erev Pesach, and then it says the following: Makom she'oisa, hahoylech mi makom she'oisa. Someone comes from a place where they did do work, l'makom she'ein oisa, to a place where you didn't do work. Or makom she'ein oisim, or a place where they didn't do work. L'makom she'oisim, to a place that you did do work. So l'chayra, pashtus, either way you can't do work. Either because the place you came to or the place you came from. Now, the al yeshana adam mifnei machlokes, and a person should not be mishana because of machlokes. Because the machlokes do not be mishana. Now, let's go over this outside. What's the first case? The first case is you're coming from a place that does do work to a place that doesn't do work. So here I come. I'm going to go ahead and work in a place that doesn't do work. Everyone's going to go ahead and say, what are you doing? We don't work here. What are you doing over here? You're going to get into a fight. So therefore, that statement makes sense. If I'm coming from a place that does work to a place that doesn't do work, if I'm knowing the minig where I came from, which would make sense, and now I'm not being knowing the minig that of the place that I'm going, that would make sense why machlokes might arise. What's the next case? I'm coming from a place that doesn't do work. I don't do work. I'm coming to a place that does do work. So because of machlokes, I should do work. Yeah. I'm coming from a place that doesn't do work. I'm coming to a place that does do work. So you're going to tell me to work? So how can that last statement seems to be a little hard? Because why? You just told me I'm knowing the minig of what? The place I'm coming from. The place I'm coming from, I don't do any work. And now you're telling me, because of machlokes, the place I'm coming to, go ahead and work. What happened to the chumrah of the place you're coming from? It seems to, in other words, that statement of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, seems to contradict the thing you just said before. Now, there were two cases. It only is contradictory to the second case. The first case would work out. I'm coming from a place that does the work to a place that doesn't do work, then because of machlokes, that would make sense. It doesn't make sense in the second case. So that's what the Gemara is going to address right now. Says the Gemara. You're coming from a place that does the work to a place that doesn't do work. We'll give you the chumrah of the place and don't do work. Why? Even though the place you're coming from does work, over here don't do work. It's going to lend to machlokes. That makes a lot of sense. That line of the Mishnah applies very good to case number one. Case number two, I'm coming from a place where you don't do work. I don't work. To a place that you do work. You do work. 1 second. You just said the place I left doesn't do work. So how can you tell me now to work in order to avoid machlokes? It makes no sense. So Rabbi, you're right. It makes no sense. Aresha. That statement that you go ahead and not mishana from the minig is only going on case number one. So therefore, even though your minig is to go ahead and work, if you come to a place that doesn't work, don't be mishana because of machlokes and don't do any work. Rabbi says no. Rabbi says it's going on the sefer. What does it say in the sefer? I'm coming from a place that doesn't work. I'm going to a place that does do work. Al yeshana v'achi kamar. Ein bezum ifnei shinoi hamachlokes. You don't have to worry about it. Al yeshana, meaning there is no concern about machlokes here. Ki huzeh. There's no machloikas ki huzeh. My ka'amra. What are people going to say? Haroya omer melacha asura. They're going to say that melacha is asur. That's why, in other words, that would lead to machloikas. I'm coming from a place that doesn't work to a place that does work. They're going to see this guy not working. What are they going to say? What? You don't work? The meaning over here is to work, and you're not working, and lead to machloikas? No. Meima Ami is going to say to himself, Kama batlani have b'shuka. There are many batlanim in the street who don't work. In other words, there is something to go ahead and place in svara why this person's not working. Nothing to do with meaning, simply because he doesn't have a job or he doesn't want to work. There are many people who are out of work. Bismana said there are many, many people out of work, right? So the fact that he's not working is not to lead to machloikis. The fact that he's not working, people say there are many batlanim who don't work. Therefore, not a problem. So it's very geshmak, right? If you come to a place, you're coming from a place that doesn't work to a place that does work. Of course, don't work. Be knowing the chumrah of the place you came from, not to work. And that you're not working in a place that does the work, they won't think it's because you're minig. They'll think it's because you don't have a job. So therefore, it's very geshmak in the Mishnah. The Rabbi says not going on the Reisha, it's going on the Seifa. Wish you all a very good day. Again, machloikas to Pinchas Eliyahu on the nuptials of daughter Atara.